The sun had barely lifted over Naval Base Coronado when Private First Class Emily Carter reported for duty. The California heat was already crawling across the asphalt, and the air shimmered like glass above the long stretch of road leading to the front gate. The rhythmic sound of idling engines, the hum of radios, and the occasional barked order from passing officers blended into a familiar morning symphony, one that Emily had come to know well. She adjusted the strap of her M4 rifle, checked the tension on her vest, and squared her shoulders. The gate duty was not glamorous. It wasn't the kind of assignment anyone bragged about at the mess hall. Most soldiers saw it as punishment, a dull routine that required more patience than pride. But for Emily, it was everything. A chance to prove that even in the most overlooked position, excellence mattered. Every morning, she arrived 15 minutes early, ensuring her uniform was flawless and her posture impeccable. The other guards sometimes laughed at her seriousness. "It's just a gate, Carter," one of them, Corporal Jackson, liked to say. "No one's giving medals for checking IDs." She'd only smile faintly in return. "Doesn't mean we shouldn't do it right," she'd reply. Her dedication came from a place deep inside, a lifetime of being underestimated. She had grown up in a small town in Missouri, the only daughter of a Marine veteran who ran a body shop and rarely spoke about his time in service. Her father, Sergeant William Carter, was a man of few words but many expectations. When she told him she wanted to enlist, he had chuckled and said, "Emily, this isn't a playground. You're not built for that life." She never forgot that sentence. It burned quietly inside her like a slow flame. Every mile she ran in training, every blister, every bruise, she imagined proving him wrong. Now, standing guard at the massive steel gates of Coronado, she felt the weight of her choice and the hunger to make it mean something. The morning dragged in waves. Cars came and went, civilian contractors, Navy officers, delivery trucks. Emily's hands moved with mechanical precision. Check ID, confirm clearance, nod, wave through. Her eyes, however, were always sharp. She noticed small things others ignored: a driver's nervous tapping, a missing badge clip, an incorrect pass date. Her vigilance made her respected by her superior, Sergeant Davis, though he rarely said so out loud. "Carter, you're too serious for your own good," he muttered as he walked by that morning, sipping coffee from a battered thermos. "Just doing my job, sir," she said, her voice even. He smirked. "Yeah, well, keep doing it. The base feels safer when you're here." It wasn't much, but coming from Davis, that was practically a medal. By 0900 hours, the California sun was relentless. Sweat trickled down the back of Emily's neck, and her boots felt like lead. She shifted her stance, scanning the next car approaching, a dusty Jeep with a civilian contractor badge. Everything looked fine until she noticed the driver's trembling hand. She stepped closer, leaning slightly. "Morning, sir. You all right today?" The man froze, eyes wide. Then he sighed. "Oh, sorry, ma'am. Long night. Coffee hasn't kicked in yet." Emily studied him for a second longer. His ID was valid. She nodded and waved him through. Her gut relaxed, but her mind didn't. She'd learned early that hesitation could mean the difference between calm and chaos. She watched the Jeep disappear into the base. Another car rolled forward, a silver sedan with Navy plates. She lifted her hand to signal stop, then suddenly noticed Sergeant Davis talking urgently into his radio. Something was happening down the road. "Carter," he called out, waving her over. "We've got a high-level convoy incoming. Full protocol. Get your posture straight. No errors." Emily returned to her post immediately. Her pulse quickened. High-level convoy. That meant command officers, possibly even special operations personnel. The kind of people you didn't make mistakes with. The low growl of engines grew louder. Moments later, 2 military SUVs appeared, flanked by security vehicles. Their windows were tinted black, the kind used for transporting high-ranking officials or classified personnel. Every guard along the line stood at full attention. Emily's breath slowed as the first SUV stopped right in front of her booth. The door didn't open immediately. For a few seconds, only the faint hum of the engine filled the air. Then, with deliberate precision, the tinted window rolled down halfway. Behind it sat a man whose presence alone demanded silence. His uniform bore the insignia of a Navy SEAL commander, and his gaze was direct, sharp, the kind that had seen war up close. Emily's training kicked in. She didn't flinch. "Good morning, sir," she said, extending her hand for identification. "May I see your base pass, please?" The men beside her froze. No one, not even Sergeant Davis, usually asked the SEAL commander for ID. They were legends, untouchable, but Emily didn't care about legends. The rules were the rules. The commander studied her for a long second, almost amused. Then he reached into his pocket, produced his credentials, and handed them over without a word. Emily inspected them carefully, scanning the barcode, confirming the clearance, and nodding once. "Thank you, sir," she said, handing them back. "You're clear to proceed." As he accepted the documents, he looked up again, his eyes meeting hers. There was something in his expression, not annoyance, not arrogance, but recognition. A flicker of respect. Then, unexpectedly, he lifted his hand and saluted. Emily blinked, momentarily unsure if she'd seen it right. A SEAL commander saluting her? She quickly returned the gesture, her movement crisp and precise. The entire gate fell silent. Even the guards stopped breathing for a heartbeat. The commander gave a faint smile, rolled up his window, and the SUV pulled forward. The convoy disappeared beyond the gates, leaving behind an air of disbelief. Sergeant Davis approached, eyebrows raised high. "What in the world just happened, Carter?" Emily swallowed hard. "Sir, I don't know. He saluted me." Davis chuckled in disbelief. That was Commander Nathan Cole, the most decorated SEAL on this coast. "He doesn't salute anyone below captain." "What did you do?" "Nothing, sir," she said softly. "I just did my job." But even as she said it, Emily felt a chill run through her. The commander's eyes, calm, deliberate, and knowing, replayed in her mind. That salute wasn't random. It meant something. When her shift ended that day, she stayed a few minutes longer, staring at the empty road beyond the gate. The sun was setting over the ocean, streaking the sky with shades of gold and crimson. The same cars, the same noise, but the world suddenly felt different. She thought of her father again, of the challenge in his voice. "You'll never last among warriors." Maybe not, she thought, but warriors respected strength, even in silence. That night, as Emily walked back to her barracks, soldiers still whispered about what they'd seen. Some called it luck, others said it was a mistake. But deep down, Emily knew better. The salute from Commander Cole wasn't a mistake. It was the beginning of something, a connection that neither of them yet understood. And somewhere, far away, the commander was thinking the same thing. He had seen that kind of discipline before, once years ago, on another dusty gate in another country. But that story, and the reason for his salute, would come later. For now, the quiet gate guard had unknowingly earned the respect of one of the Navy's most legendary men. And life at Coronado would never be the same again. The following morning came cloaked in the same Southern California sunlight, but something in the air around Naval Base Coronado felt altered, tighter, sharper, charged with unspoken curiosity. Wherever Private First Class Emily Carter went, eyes followed her. Soldiers who hadn't said a word to her before, now offered quick glances, muffled laughs, or subtle nods. The story had already traveled faster than a radio signal. A SEAL commander saluted the gate guard. In the military, gestures meant everything: hierarchy, respect, reputation. Commanders didn't salute first. Not ever. Emily tried to ignore it. She focused on her morning routine: perfectly folded sleeves, boots polished to a mirror shine, hair pulled tight. She reported to the gate exactly on time, even though her stomach churned. When Sergeant Davis approached, he looked more amused than angry. "You've stirred up a storm, Carter." "Sir?" "Commander Nathan Cole. People are saying you stopped him like he was a rookie driver. Didn't even blink." He paused, grinning. "And then he saluted you. I've been here 15 years, and I've never seen anything like that." Emily's expression remained steady. "I was following procedure, sir." "That's the point," Davis said, shaking his head. "You treated him like everyone else. Most guards freeze when command comes through. You didn't." She nodded politely and turned back toward the checkpoint, but the words echoed in her head. She hadn't done anything special. She'd simply done her duty. Yet deep down, she couldn't shake the memory of those eyes. Calm, calculating, and oddly familiar. The rest of the day unfolded in routine monotony. Vehicles rolled through. Credentials flashed. The California heat baked the tarmac. By mid-afternoon, the story seemed to have faded until Davis's radio crackled. "Sergeant Davis, report to command building. Bring Private Carter with you." Emily froze. "Sir, did I do something wrong?" Davis frowned slightly. "Not sure, Carter. But whatever this is, it's way above my pay grade." They walked through the corridors of the command building, where portraits of decorated officers lined the walls, men and women whose faces told stories of sacrifice and leadership. Emily felt the weight of history pressing down on her. She'd never even been inside this building before. When they reached the second floor, a tall officer at the reception desk looked up. "Commander Cole is expecting you." Her heart skipped. Commander Cole, the same man from yesterday, the one who saluted her. Davis glanced at her, then gave a quiet nod. "Keep your head up, Private." Emily followed the officer down a long hallway until they stopped in front of a door marked Commander Nathan Cole, Special Operations Division. The officer knocked once. "Sir, Private Carter is here." A deep voice answered from inside. "Send her in." Emily stepped forward, her boots clicking against the polished floor. When the door closed behind her, the room fell into a heavy silence. Commander Cole stood behind his desk, tall and broad-shouldered, wearing a crisp uniform with rows of ribbons that gleamed under the light. He wasn't looking at her, not yet. His gaze was fixed on a photograph on his desk, his expression unreadable. Finally, he looked up. "At ease, Private." Emily clasped her hands behind her back, but stayed silent. He gestured toward the chair across from him. "Sit." She hesitated. SEAL commanders didn't usually offer chairs to gate guards, but obeyed. Cole studied her for a long moment, then smiled faintly. "You've been the talk of the base for 24 hours, Private Carter. How does that feel?" "I'd prefer to just do my job, sir," she said, her tone controlled. He chuckled. "Good answer. But you should know, it wasn't your job that caught my attention. It was how you did it." Emily blinked. "Sir? You stopped my vehicle without hesitation. You demanded ID. You followed every step, no matter who sat behind the glass." He leaned forward slightly. "That kind of composure isn't common, not even among seasoned officers." She didn't know how to respond. "I was just enforcing protocol, sir." "Exactly," he said. "And you did it flawlessly." He stood, walked around the desk, and rested his hands on its edge. Do you know why I saluted you, Private? Emily shook her head. He looked away for a moment, eyes distant. Because you reminded me of someone. He walked to a cabinet, opened it, and pulled out a framed photograph. A group of soldiers standing in front of a desert checkpoint. Dust swirled around them. The sun was low. He handed it to her. In the center of the photo was a woman in uniform, smiling proudly. Her name was Specialist Dana Reeves, he said quietly. She was a gate guard in Kandahar. In 2011, my team was returning from a mission when she stopped us, same as you did. She noticed something off about one of the trucks in our convoy. She didn't ignore it. He paused. There was a bomb inside. Emily felt her chest tighten. She caught it before it entered the base, he continued. Saved over 40 lives, mine included. She was killed 6 months later during another attack. I never forgot her face. Or her discipline. He looked at Emily again. Yesterday, when you stopped me, it was like seeing her ghost. Same eyes, same focus, same refusal to be intimidated by rank. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The hum of the air conditioner filled the room, steady and cold. Finally, he said, the salute was for her, and for you. Because that kind of respect doesn't belong to rank. It belongs to conduct. Emily's throat tightened. Thank you, sir. He nodded once. You're new here, aren't you? Yes, sir. 3 weeks. National Guard transfer? Yes, sir. He smiled faintly. You're far from Missouri, Private Carter. Her eyes widened. How did you? He gestured toward a file on his desk. I read your record. You graduated top 5 in your basic training class. No disciplinary marks. Volunteered for extra shifts. And his smile deepened. You've been overlooked since you got here. Emily didn't deny it. I'm just trying to prove I belong, sir. Cole crossed his arms. You already did. He took a breath. I'm requesting your reassignment temporarily. I want you working under Security Division for the next 2 weeks. Her eyes widened. Sir, I'm just a gate guard. Not anymore, he said firmly. You've got potential. I'll see if you can handle a real post. Emily hesitated. The thought of leaving the gate, her safe, structured corner of the world, terrified her. But the look in his eyes told her this wasn't a test of convenience. It was an opportunity. Yes, sir, she said finally. I won't let you down. I know you won't. He handed her the photograph back. Keep it. Remind yourself that vigilance saves lives, and that courage often looks quiet. Emily rose to her feet and saluted. He returned the salute, once again, with deliberate respect. As she left the office, her heart pounded like a drum. The hallways seemed longer now, heavier with purpose. When she stepped outside, the California sunlight felt sharper, almost blinding. Sergeant Davis was waiting by the stairs. Well? He asked. Emily exhaled slowly. I think my life just changed, sir. He chuckled. That's one way to put it. As she walked back toward the gate for her final shift there, she glanced once more at the photograph in her hand, the smiling woman in the desert dust, standing tall beside a checkpoint just like hers. And for the first time, Emily understood the meaning of that salute. It wasn't about her rank. It was about her character. That night, as the base lights flickered against the ocean horizon, Emily Carter stared out over the dark water, feeling something she hadn't in months, belonging. What she didn't know yet was that the commander's decision to bring her into his division would soon test her in ways no gate post ever could. And the real story, the one that would echo far beyond the walls of Coronado, was only just beginning. By sunrise, Naval Base Coronado was already alive with whispers. In the mess hall, in the barracks, Even across the training fields, everyone seemed to know about the young National Guard soldier who'd made a SEAL commander salute first. For some, it was inspiring, a reminder that discipline still mattered. For others, it was almost insulting, a rookie guard being recognized by one of the most respected men on base. Private First Class Emily Carter tried her best to ignore it all. She moved through her morning quietly, uniform crisp, mind focused. She wasn't used to attention, and she didn't want it. The salute had meant something to her, something personal, not something to be turned into gossip. But the military had a way of turning small moments into legends, and legends came with scrutiny. By noon, Sergeant Davis caught up with her outside the gate. "You're trending, Carter." "Sir?" He smirked. "Base forums. Someone saw it happen and posted about it. Commander Cole saluting you is now the #1 topic. Half the people think it's fake. The other half think you're some kind of hero." Emily sighed. "I just did my job." "I know," Davis said. "But it's rare these days to see someone earn respect the hard way. You didn't flinch, and that matters. Don't let the noise bother you." She nodded, but didn't reply. Inside, she was torn, proud, confused, and anxious all at once. She'd spent her whole career trying to prove herself quietly. Now everyone knew her name for something she didn't even intend. Later that afternoon, as she stood beside the gate booth, her radio crackled. "Private Carter, report to the command building immediately." Her heart sank. Again? She took a deep breath, checked her gear, and began the long walk toward the white concrete structure that towered at the center of the base. The command building always made her nervous, not because of who was inside, but because of what it represented: order, power, eyes watching every move. She stood at attention in the lobby until the tall lieutenant approached. "Private Carter?" "Yes, sir. Commander Cole will see you now." The words felt strange, heavy. 2 days ago, she was just another soldier scanning IDs. Now she was being summoned by one of the most respected commanders in the Navy, twice in the same week. She stepped into his office. The space was neat, functional, walls lined with mission plaques, a folded flag, and a framed quote that read, "Discipline is doing what's right, even when no one's watching." Cole stood by the window, hands clasped behind his back, looking out toward the ocean. Sunlight streaked across the floor, reflecting off his medals. "Good morning, Private," he said without turning. "Good morning, sir." He finally faced her, offering a faint smile. At ease. Emily relaxed slightly, though her nerves didn't. "I hear you've been the topic of some lively discussion," he said. "Yes, sir. I didn't mean to cause any disruption." He chuckled softly. "You didn't. The base could use a little reminder that respect isn't always about rank." Emily stayed silent. Cole studied her for a long moment before continuing. "You're wondering why I brought you here again?" "Yes, sir." He nodded and gestured to a chair. "Sit, Carter. There's something you need to understand." She hesitated, then sat. "Do you know what most people do when they see command pull up at a checkpoint?" He asked. "Sir?" "They freeze," he said. "They either panic, overcompensate, or wave them through without checking anything. You didn't. You stayed composed. That's a rare quality, and it says more about you than you realize." She looked down. "I was just doing what I was trained to do, sir." Cole leaned forward slightly. "No, you were doing what you believed was right. There's a difference. Discipline isn't memorizing rules. It's trusting your judgment when it matters." For a moment, his gaze softened, almost as if he were remembering something far away. "That's the same thing Specialist Donna Reeves used to say." Emily remembered the photograph he'd shown her yesterday, the woman in the desert dust, the one who'd saved his unit years ago. "She was the one who inspired your salute," Emily said quietly. Yes, Cole replied. And she would have been proud of you. Emily blinked, surprised. Me, sir? He smiled faintly. You carried the same stillness she had. It's rare, Private. Most people talk about courage, but true courage is quiet. It's the kind that holds its ground when everyone else hesitates. His words settled over her like a weight she wasn't sure how to carry. Then he said something that made her sit up straighter. I've arranged for you to be temporarily reassigned to my division. Her breath caught. Sir, you'll work with base security operations, under my supervision. You'll shadow some of our procedures, assist with logistics, and learn from the inside how command coordination works. Sir, I'm not sure I'm qualified for that. Neither was I once, he said simply. That's how we learn. Emily didn't know whether to feel honored or terrified. Sir, I don't want people thinking I got special treatment. Cole's eyes sharpened. You didn't. You earned an opportunity, not a favor. The difference is what you do next. She nodded slowly. Understood, sir. He smiled again. Good. You start tomorrow at 0600. Dismissed, Private. She rose, saluted, and turned to leave. But as her hand reached for the door, he said quietly, And Carter, ignore the noise. The loudest people are rarely the ones doing the work. She smiled faintly. Yes, sir. That night, the base mess hall buzzed with conversation again, this time about her reassignment. Did you hear? The gate guards moving into security division. Cole must have lost his mind. She probably saved him from paperwork or something. Emily sat quietly at the edge of the room, eating her dinner in silence. She didn't defend herself. She didn't need to. She knew the truth, that opportunities in the military weren't handed out for popularity. They were earned through consistency. When she returned to her barracks, she pulled out the photo Cole had given her, Specialist Reeves smiling in the Afghan dust. Emily traced the edge of the picture with her thumb. She wondered if that woman had faced the same doubts, the same whispers, the same unseen battles. Probably. And she'd faced them with strength. Emily decided she would too. The next morning, before dawn, she stood outside the security division office, uniform immaculate, heart steady. As the first rays of sunlight touched the Pacific, Commander Cole stepped out of the building, coffee in hand. He stopped when he saw her. You're early. Yes, sir. I figured it's better to be ready than on time. He smiled approvingly. You'll fit right in. And just like that, her new chapter began. A gate guard now standing inside the walls of authority, learning how the base truly operated. But even as she followed Cole through the corridors, she could feel the weight of 100 eyes on her. Some curious, some envious, some waiting for her to fail. She didn't care. Because for the first time since joining the Guard, she wasn't trying to prove herself to anyone else. She was proving herself to the uniform she wore. And somewhere, watching from behind his calm blue eyes, Commander Cole knew she was about to face challenges that would shape not just her future, but his own. The salute had been just the beginning. What came next would test loyalty, courage, and the thin line between respect and command. The Security Operations Division wasn't like the quiet post at the gate. Inside, every second felt measured, every task precise. Maps lined the walls, screens blinked with live surveillance feeds, and radio chatter never truly stopped. Private First Class Emily Carter stood near the briefing table, feeling like a small gear in a massive machine. Commander Cole paced in front of his team, 5 officers and 3 enlisted specialists, explaining new perimeter protocols for an incoming joint training exercise. This isn't routine, he said firmly. We'll have SEAL units, Air Force technicians, and Marine Command coming through. Our job is to make sure every inch of this base stays secure. No leaks, no confusion, no missed ID scans. His tone was calm, but commanding, the kind that demanded attention without raising volume. Then his eyes found Emily. "Carter, you'll assist Lieutenant Brooks in coordination. You'll run ground checks on access lists, cross-check credentials, and monitor guard stations for compliance. Think of it as quality control." "Yes, sir," she replied. Brooks, a stocky lieutenant with a skeptical expression, gave her a curt nod. "Try to keep up, Private. This isn't gate duty anymore." Emily didn't flinch. "Understood, sir." The next few hours were a whirlwind of tasks, checking manifests, verifying personnel data, observing patrol schedules. Brooks moved fast, sharp, and often impatient. "You have to anticipate problems before they happen," he told her. "Security fails when people wait to be told what to do." Emily nodded, learning quickly. She noticed small things others overlooked: a misplaced badge, a gap in patrol, overlap, a security camera with an odd flicker. Each time she pointed something out, Brooks barely acknowledged it, but Cole noticed. By afternoon, Cole called her into his office. "You're adjusting fast," he said. "Thank you, sir. I'm trying to understand how it all connects." He smiled. "That's how leadership starts, by seeing the whole picture." But just as Emily began to feel confident, an alert buzzed through the intercom. "Attention all security personnel. Unidentified vehicle at the east gate. Possible unauthorized entry attempt." The room tensed instantly. Cole's calm demeanor hardened. "Brooks, you're with me. Carter, stay on Channel 3 and monitor all feeds." "Yes, sir." Emily ran to the console, fingers steady. She pulled up the East Gate camera. A black SUV sat idling at the checkpoint, its driver arguing with a guard. The license plate didn't match any entry list. Through the radio, static cracked as Brooks' voice came through. "Command, this is Brooks. The driver claims to be with the engineering unit, but his clearance code's invalid." Cole's voice followed, low and controlled. "Copy. Verify ID number with logistics. Stand by." Emily's heart raced. She quickly accessed the database, typing fast, but the system lagged for a few seconds too long. "Come on," she muttered. When the data finally appeared, her eyes widened. The code was authentic, but outdated. It belonged to a contractor who'd been transferred months ago. "Commander, this is Carter," she said into the radio. "The clearance is real, but belongs to a former contractor. The vehicle's authorization is void." "Good catch," Cole replied instantly. "Gate team, detain, and verify." Within minutes, the situation was contained. The SUV was escorted to inspection, the driver taken for questioning. Turned out, he was a civilian supplier using an old badge to access restricted zones, not malicious, but careless enough to cause a potential breach. When Cole returned, he found Emily still at her station, hands clasped, eyes sharp. "You prevented a security violation, Private," he said. "That's exactly why you're here." "Just doing my job, sir," she said, though pride flickered behind her calm tone. Brooks nodded grudgingly. "Not bad, Carter. You think fast." It wasn't praise, but coming from him, it meant everything. The following days tested Emily like never before. The base transformed into a hive of movement. Convoys arriving, drills rehearsed, tactical meetings running back to back. She barely slept, her mind spinning with codes, procedures, and rotations. Yet, amid the chaos, she found a rhythm, a purpose. She began anticipating Cole's needs before he voiced them. When a scheduling error threatened to delay a SEAL training session, she caught it. When a visitor pass went missing, she traced it to the wrong department. She wasn't invisible anymore. She was part of the system. Still, whispers followed her everywhere. "She's Cole's favorite. She got lucky at the gate. She's just a showpiece for discipline. At first, she tried to ignore them. But one evening, as she walked out of the operations center, she overheard two guards talking near the fence line. Bet she's just trying to impress him. These commanders love a story. Emily froze, her jaw tightening. She turned, met their eyes briefly, and said quietly, "Respect isn't given because of a story. It's earned through every shift you don't mess up." Neither guard responded. They just looked down. She walked away, back straight, step steady, the way Cole always did. A week later, Cole called her into his office again. "Carter," he began, "I'm recommending you for a temporary leadership trial." She blinked. "Sir, you'll oversee the North Perimeter teams during the exercise tomorrow. You'll have 3 guards under your direction. It's not permanent command, but it's a test." Her pulse quickened. "I don't know if I'm ready, sir." Cole smiled. "No one ever does? That's why it's called a test." That night, Emily barely slept. She reviewed maps, procedures, and radio codes over and over. She wasn't afraid of failure. She was afraid of letting Cole down. Before dawn, she stood by the perimeter road, watching the sky turn pink. Her team arrived. Privates Jenkins, Rivera, and Hall. Jenkins smirked when he saw her. "So the gate girl's leading us now?" Emily didn't react. "I'm not leading. We're operating together. Let's keep it tight. Every vehicle gets double checks. Every ID logged twice. No shortcuts." By mid-morning, the drill began. Convoys rolled through checkpoints. Radios buzzed nonstop, and the air vibrated with tension. Everything ran smoothly, until a fuel truck approached without prior clearance. Jenkins started waving it through. "Hold it." Emily snapped. She stepped forward, checking the manifest. The truck's code was correct, but its route assignment didn't match the exercise file. She radioed command. "North Team to operations. Unverified vehicle route for Fuel 09B. Request immediate confirmation." Static. Then Cole's calm voice came through. "Good call, Carter. That truck's been rerouted. It shouldn't be there yet. Hold position." Seconds later, a Marine convoy came around the corner, the one that was supposed to be in that lane. If Jenkins had waved the truck through, there would have been a collision. Cole's voice again. "Outstanding work, North Team." Emily exhaled, heart pounding. Jenkins gave a sheepish nod. "Guess the gate girl's got instincts." She smiled faintly. Instincts are just experience paying attention. When the drill ended, Cole met her outside the operations building. "You saved us a mess today," he said. "I just followed procedure, sir." "Exactly," he said. "That's what makes the difference. Most people panic when things move fast. You didn't." He paused, studying her. "You're starting to remind me more of Reeves every day." Emily smiled softly. "Then I must be doing something right." Cole returned the smile, but there was something else in his eyes. A quiet recognition, maybe even gratitude. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the Pacific, Emily stood by the gate again, watching the base lights flicker on. It felt poetic, the place she'd started now behind her, the path ahead wide open. She wasn't just a guard anymore. She was part of something larger, something earned. But deep down, she sensed this was only the beginning. Because just beyond that horizon, the true test of loyalty and courage was coming. One that would blur the line between following orders and doing what's right. It began just before sunrise. The horizon glowed faintly orange, the air thick with sea mist, and the base was unusually quiet. Only a few guards were on rotation. Among them, Private First Class Emily Carter, who had volunteered for an early shift after her long week in security operations. Her new role had earned her quiet respect. Even those who once mocked her now greeted her with nods. But Emily didn't crave admiration. She valued readiness. And something about that morning felt off. At 0500, she was stationed near the north perimeter, the same zone she had supervised during the joint exercise. The wind carried the low hum of distant engines, supply trucks scheduled to arrive around 600, but one sound didn't match. A faint metallic rattle echoed from the tree line beyond the wire fence, a sound too deliberate, too rhythmic to be wind. Emily stiffened. She raised her radio. "Operations, this is Carter. I'm hearing movement near North Fence Sector 3. Any scheduled maintenance teams in that area?" Static, then a voice. "Negative, Carter. No teams assigned there until 0700. Her pulse quickened. She unshouldered her M4 carbine, eyes scanning the gray dawn. A shadow flickered between the trees, brief but unmistakable. "Command, I've got visual movement, possibly unauthorized personnel." "Copy that." "Stay put, backup en route." But Emily knew backup would take at least 5 minutes. And if someone was breaching the base, 5 minutes was too long. She moved low, careful, silent. Every step crunched softly against gravel as she neared the fence line. The air was cold, her breath forming small clouds. Then she saw it, a pair of gloved hands working fast with wire cutters, slicing through the outer fence. Whoever it was, they were skilled, efficient, quiet, deliberate. "Stop. U.S. military installation. Identify yourself." The figure froze. Then, in a blink, dropped the cutters and bolted into the shadows. Emily gave chase. Her boots pounded against the dirt as she sprinted toward the tree line. The intruder was fast, but she was faster. Years of discipline and conditioning kicked in. "Stop right there." She shouted again. No response, just the sound of branches snapping and gravel scattering. Finally, she caught up, tackling the person to the ground. They struggled, rolling across the dirt until she pinned them down. The intruder wore civilian clothes, dark jacket, utility boots, a baseball cap pulled low. Emily ripped the cap off, breath heaving. A man in his 40s glared back at her. His face was tense, eyes darting toward the base. "Who are you?" she demanded. He said nothing. She tightened her grip. "You're trespassing on a restricted military site. You need to start talking." Before she could finish, the man twisted suddenly, trying to reach into his jacket. Instinct took over. She yanked his arm back, forcing him to the ground again. Something clattered onto the dirt. A camera. A small, high-tech DSLR with a telephoto lens. Not a weapon, but close enough to make her realize the risk she'd just taken. Within seconds, headlights flashed from the road. Backup had arrived. Lieutenant Brooks and 2 security officers jumped out. "Carter, stand down." Brooks barked. She rose quickly, hands raised. "He was cutting the fence, sir." Brooks knelt beside the man, confiscating the camera. "You just caught yourself a spy, Private." Emily's heart pounded. "A spy?" Brooks turned the camera over, scanning the photos on the digital screen. Images of the base, entry gates, and even training schedules appeared one by one. "Looks like someone's been busy," Brooks muttered. The intruder stayed silent, jaw clenched. "Get him to the holding room," Brooks ordered. As the officers dragged the man away, Commander Cole's voice came through the radio, calm but sharp. "Report." Brooks answered. "Unauthorized breach near Sector 3. Suspect detained. Photo reconnaissance." Private Carter initiated contact. There was a long pause. Then Cole replied, "Secure the area." "I'll be there in 10. When Cole arrived, the scene was sealed off. The sun was rising now, casting orange light over the damaged fence. Emily stood near it, her uniform smeared with dirt, adrenaline still rushing. Cole approached, expression unreadable. "You okay?" "Yes, sir," she said quietly. "You realize you could have been seriously injured?" "Yes, sir. But I couldn't let him escape." Cole studied her, part anger, part admiration flickering behind his eyes. "Next time, wait for backup." "Yes, sir," she replied, though both knew she would have done the same thing again. He turned toward the breach, inspecting the cut wire. "Good instincts. You may have stopped something bigger than we realize." That line stuck with her. Later that morning, in the debrief room, the air was thick with tension. The detained man sat handcuffed, staring blankly ahead. Cole, Brooks, and a pair of naval intelligence officers stood behind the glass, watching. "Who is he?" Emily asked quietly. "Name's Derek Hanley," Brooks said. "Former civilian contractor. Worked logistics 2 years ago. Was fired for unauthorized access." Emily's eyes widened. "The same name from the invalid clearance last week?" Brooks nodded grimly. "Exactly. He's the one who tried to get in with the old badge. He came back." Cole's jaw tightened. This wasn't random. "He's been studying us for weeks." The intelligence officer spoke up. "We found encrypted files on his laptop. Photos of security rotations, gate codes, even internal memos. Someone's been paying him." Emily frowned. "Who?" "That's what we're trying to find out." Cole turned to her. "You realize, Carter, if you hadn't been alert, he might have made it inside today." She nodded slowly. "Sir, I just had a feeling something wasn't right." "That feeling saved this base," Cole said simply. By evening, word of the incident had spread across Coronado. For once, the whispers weren't skeptical. They were filled with respect. "Carter's the one who caught the intruder. She took him down herself. She's the reason we're not on lockdown right now." Emily tried to avoid the attention. But even Brooks, the man who once doubted her, gave her a genuine nod. "You did good, Private. Real good." She smiled faintly. "Thank you, sir." Later, Cole found her sitting outside the barracks, staring at the horizon. The ocean breeze carried the faint sound of seagulls and distant engines. "You know," he said, sitting beside her, "Reeves once told me something after a similar breach overseas." She said, "Sometimes you don't stop danger. You just delay it long enough to understand it." Emily looked at him. "You think this isn't over?" Cole shook his head. "No, Hanley didn't act alone. And the files he had were too detailed. Someone on the inside helped him." She absorbed that in silence. Then he added quietly, "That means someone here, on this base, is feeding him information." Emily turned toward him, eyes narrowing. "Then we find them." Cole smiled faintly. "That's exactly what I was hoping you'd say." That night, as the base lights flickered under the dark sky, Emily couldn't shake the image of Hanley's cold stare, the way he hadn't said a single word during interrogation. Somewhere in that silence, she sensed a message. He wasn't done. And if Cole was right, if someone on base was working with him, then everything she thought she understood about loyalty was about to change. For the first time, she realized that guarding a gate had been simple compared to guarding the truth. The next dawn wouldn't bring peace. It would bring a test of trust, one that could destroy careers, friendships, and perhaps even lives. And at the center of it all would stand Private First Class Emily Carter, the soldier who once thought her duty ended at the gate. The night air at Naval Base Coronado carried a strange silence, the kind that only followed chaos. The storm that had been building for days had finally broken, not just outside, but within the chain of command itself. Emily Carter stood outside the command building, her uniform still damp from the rain, her pulse unsteady as flashes of what had happened replayed in her mind. The alarms, the confrontation, the files she wasn't supposed to see. Everything had happened so fast. She could still hear Commander Cole's voice echoing in her head. "You were never supposed to be part of this, Carter." But she was part of it now. Inside, the lights were still on. Security teams moved swiftly between offices, logging evidence, copying drives, checking cameras. Something was happening behind those walls, something much larger than one soldier's mistake. She was about to step forward when a familiar voice came from behind her. "Private Carter," said Sergeant Monroe, his tone calm but laced with tension. "Commander Cole wants to see you." Emily turned to face him. Monroe was usually the kind of officer who looked unbothered by anything. But tonight, even he looked uneasy. His uniform was half soaked, his jaw set. "Yes, sir," Emily replied quickly, and followed him into the building. The corridor smelled faintly of coffee and burned circuits, the aftertaste of a power surge. When they reached the operations room, Cole stood near the central table, arms folded, eyes locked on a monitor showing security footage. He didn't turn when he spoke. "Close the door, Sergeant." Monroe obeyed. Emily stood at attention. "Sir." Cole exhaled deeply, his voice low. "Do you know what that file you accessed was?" "I wasn't trying to access it, sir," Emily said quickly. "It was mislabeled in the transfer logs. I thought it was part of the security drill data." He finally turned to her, his face calm, but eyes burning with something unreadable. "It wasn't." She waited, heart pounding. "That file," Cole continued, "contained encrypted communications between our base and a civilian logistics contractor. Someone inside this facility has been leaking operational information. You stumbled onto a trace of it." Emily blinked. "Leaking information? To who?" "That's what we're trying to find out," Monroe said quietly. Cole looked between them. "From this point on, what you saw does not leave this room. Not a word. Not to your team, not to anyone." "Yes, sir," Emily replied. He nodded slowly. "Good, because whoever's behind this knows exactly what they're doing." There was a pause, heavy, filled with more than just tension. For the first time since she'd met him, Cole looked uncertain. "Sir?" Emily said hesitantly. "If it's internal, how far does this go?" Cole's gaze met hers. "Far enough that I can't trust everyone in my own division." A cold chill ran down her spine. The room fell silent again. Outside, thunder rolled faintly across the Pacific. Then Cole spoke softly, almost to himself. "You remind me of someone, Carter." She waited, unsure what to say. "Her name was Specialist Dana Reeves," he said. "She was the reason I ever made it out of my first combat tour. She had the same instincts you do, quiet, steady, never asking for credit. And when things went wrong, she didn't run." He looked at her then, really looked, as if weighing whether to trust her. "You have that same look in your eyes. That's why I'm telling you this." Emily swallowed hard. "Sir, what do you need me to do?" Cole turned away from the monitor. "Keep doing your job. But keep your eyes open. Watch everything. Who logs in? Who moves files? Who comes near the comms room? If you notice anything off, you tell me directly. No reports. No chain of command. Straight to me." "Yes, sir," she said. Monroe shifted uncomfortably. "Commander, with respect, that's a dangerous order. If someone's watching, they'll know she's involved." Cole's expression hardened. "They already know." The minute she opened that file, she became part of this. The words hit her like a shockwave. She wanted to protest, to insist she was just a guard, not an investigator. But she saw something in his face, the unspoken truth that they were both trapped in this now. "Dismissed," he said finally. "Both of you." Emily saluted, turned, and walked out. Her boots echoed down the hallway, the sound mixing with the hum of emergency lights. As she reached the outer doors, Monroe caught up. "Carter," he said quietly, "whatever's going on here, be careful. Command games like this, they don't end well for people like us." She nodded, but said nothing. The next few days blurred together. Patrols, gate checks, midnight logs. Nothing seemed out of place, at least not on the surface. But little things began to stand out to her. The same white SUV parked near the docks every night. A lieutenant she'd never seen before walking out of the communications wing at odd hours. A missing hard drive logged as in maintenance for 3 days straight. She noted everything, kept her silence, and waited. Then, one night, everything snapped. It was near midnight when she heard the faint crackle on her radio. A voice, distorted, hurried. "Carter, you there?" It was Sergeant Monroe. "Yes, sir," she whispered. "Stay where you are," his voice said sharply. "Do not come to Building 9. Repeat, do not." The transmission cut out. She froze. Her instincts screamed that something was wrong. Building 9 was the Data Operations Center, the same building where Cole said the leak originated. Against orders, she moved. Her boots splashed through puddles as she crossed the dark courtyard. The rain had returned, soft but relentless, tapping against her helmet. When she reached the building, the door was ajar. Inside, the lights flickered. The hallway smelled faintly of ozone and burned circuits. "Sergeant?" She called softly. No answer. She stepped further in. At the far end, through the glass of the operations room, she saw 2 figures, one standing, one slumped over a desk. She raised her sidearm and moved closer. Her heart thundered in her chest. The standing figure turned. It was Sergeant Monroe. But his face wasn't calm this time. It was pale, shaken. "Carter," he said hoarsely. "Put that down. What happened?" She demanded. He hesitated, then stepped aside. On the desk behind him, a monitor glowed faintly. Lines of code still running, a transfer still in progress. And on the floor beside it lay an open drive marked with the same code she'd seen before, BW023. Her eyes widened. "You were the leak." Monroe shook his head. "No, you don't understand." "Then explain it," she snapped. He looked at her with something like guilt, something like fear. "I was told it was an internal cleanup, that I was helping trace a foreign signal, not feeding one." "By who?" Before he could answer, a voice came from the doorway, cold, steady, and unmistakable. "By me," said Commander Cole. Emily turned sharply. Cole stood in the shadows, his uniform drenched, a pistol drawn, not at her, but at Monroe. "Sir?" she whispered, disbelief shaking through her. Monroe raised his hands. "Cole, you set me up." Cole's expression was unreadable. "You gave them access to our supply chain. You almost compromised half the base. You didn't deserve the truth." Emily's pulse roared in her ears. "Sir, what truth?" Cole's eyes flicked toward her, softer now, but filled with a weight she couldn't place. This didn't start with him. And it's not over yet. Before anyone could speak again, distant alarms began to blare. Red lights flooded the corridor. The monitor behind Monroe blinked with a single flashing message. "Transfer complete." Monroe's face went white. "Oh God, it's too late." Cole moved fast, grabbing the drive from the table, but the system had already gone dark. Emily stared at the screen, her voice barely a whisper. "What did we just lose?" Cole looked at her, his jaw tight. "Not what?" "Who?" The alarms grew louder, echoing through the building as rain lashed against the windows. Somewhere in the chaos, a new storm was beginning, one that would drag all 3 of them into something far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. And as the red lights pulsed across her face, Emily realized something chilling. The salute that had started it all wasn't the end of a moment. It was the start of a war no one was supposed to see. The alarms wailed through the night, their red glow flashing across the rain-soaked windows as if the base itself were bleeding. Emily's breath came fast, the cold air biting against her lungs. Commander Cole stood at the center of the chaos, clutching the data drive tightly in his hand, while Sergeant Monroe leaned against the table, eyes wild with disbelief. The sound of boots echoed down the hallway, security teams rushing toward the noise, but none of them knew what had just happened inside that room. Cole turned toward Emily, his face pale under the flickering light. "We have to move," he said sharply. "Now." Monroe staggered forward, his voice hoarse. "Cole, you can't just—" Cole cut him off. "You compromised the system, Sergeant. Whether you meant to or not doesn't matter anymore. They'll be here any second, and if they see this, we're all finished." Emily's mind spun. "Sir, what was on that drive? Who's they?" Cole didn't answer. He moved toward the emergency exit and motioned for her to follow. "I'll explain later. Right now, you need to trust me." She hesitated only for a second and ran after him. The corridor stretched endlessly ahead, lined with red lights and emergency sirens. Her boots splashed through puddles, her heart pounding so loudly it drowned out everything else. Behind them, Monroe shouted, "Cole, don't walk away from this." Cole stopped at the door, turned, and met Monroe's eyes for a long, silent moment. There was regret there deep, old regret but no hesitation. "I already did," he said quietly, and then he pushed the door open and disappeared into the storm with Emily at his side. The rain hit them like needles as they crossed the open yard. Helicopter rotors thudded in the distance. The whole base was waking up, and they were moving against the current. Emily didn't know where they were going. All she could do was follow the only man who seemed to understand what was happening. They reached the far side of the compound and ducked into a maintenance hangar. Cole locked the door behind them and exhaled deeply, his hands shaking slightly as he placed the data drive on a metal workbench. Emily finally spoke, her voice trembling. "Sir, you owe me the truth. What's on that drive? What did we just lose?" Cole's eyes met hers, and for a long moment he said nothing. Then quietly he began. "Years ago, before you joined the Guard, there was an operation called Black Wake. It wasn't official. It wasn't even supposed to exist. We were tracking a group inside the defense network contractors who were selling military intel to foreign buyers. The mission was to shut them down quietly before it reached the public." Emily frowned. "And did you?" Cole shook his head. "We stopped the leak, but not before a list of undercover agents was stolen. Dozens of them, men and women embedded in different parts of the world. Some were never heard from again." Her stomach turned cold. "So the file tonight was the same signature," he finished. "The same encryption pattern. Someone just accessed that same list again." Emily's breath caught. "You mean the names of those agents? They're still out there?" "Yes," Cole said, his voice grave. "And now whoever finished that transfer has them all." Lightning flashed across the hangar windows, followed by the sharp crack of thunder. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Emily felt the weight of what he'd said sink into her chest like a stone. This wasn't just about a leak. It was about lives, people who had trusted the system to protect them. "Sir," she whispered, "if Monroe didn't do this intentionally, then who did?" Cole's jaw tightened. Someone inside Intelligence Command. Someone who knew exactly how to make him look guilty. He turned toward a nearby locker and began changing out of his soaked jacket. "They'll come for us soon. They can't afford witnesses." Emily blinked. "Us? But I didn't do anything." "You were in the room," he said flatly. "That's enough." She took a step back, the weight of his words hitting her. So what now? We run? No, Cole said, slipping a new cum earpiece into his ear. We find out who's behind it. And to do that, we have to leave before they lock down the base. He moved toward the back of the hangar, where a small maintenance vehicle sat under a tarp. Emily watched as he pulled it free and started the engine. The hum filled the space like a heartbeat. Get in, he said. Sir, this is insane. Carter, he said, his voice sharp but steady. I need you to trust me one more time. For a moment, she saw again the man who had saluted her that morning at the gate, the same calm resolve, the same weight behind his eyes. She climbed into the passenger seat. The hangar door creaked open, revealing sheets of rain and the dim outline of the road beyond. They sped out into the storm, heading away from the base lights, toward the darkness of the open coastal road. For miles, neither of them spoke. The rain drummed on the windshield, and the sea crashed violently against the rocks nearby. Emily stared out into the night, wondering how her life had changed so completely in just a few hours. She had joined the Guard to protect her country. Now she was being hunted by it. Finally, Cole broke the silence. You ever wonder why I saluted you that day? She looked at him, startled. Sir? He smiled faintly, eyes still on the road. Because you reminded me of the kind of soldier I used to be, before everything got complicated. Someone who believed in right and wrong without needing to blur the line. Emily felt her throat tighten. And now? He sighed. Now I blur it for the right reasons. The road curved sharply ahead. He slowed the vehicle and pulled off into a small clearing overlooking the ocean. The rain softened, turning into mist. This is where we wait, he said quietly. There's someone coming to meet us. Who? Before he could answer, headlights appeared in the distance. A black SUV rolled up, tires crunching over gravel. It stopped a few feet away, and a tall figure stepped out, her silhouette illuminated by the car's lights. When she approached, Emily saw the insignia on her jacket commander's rank. Her hair was tied back, her presence sharp and commanding. Cole, she said, her voice low but firm. You picked a hell of a night. Cole straightened. I didn't have a choice. You said if the code ever resurfaced. I know what I said, she cut in. And I told you it would mean one thing. Emily watched as Cole and the woman exchanged a look heavy with history. Then the woman turned to her. You must be Carter, she said. He talks about you like you're the second coming of Dana Reeves. Emily blinked, realizing suddenly who she was. You're Commander Reeves. The woman nodded. Formerly. Now I'm just the person trying to keep this country from tearing itself apart. Cole held out the drive. It's complete. They have the list again. Reeves took it carefully, her jaw tightening. Then we don't have much time. You two need to disappear until I contact you again. If Command finds out you're alive, they'll bury this before the truth ever surfaces. Emily felt the world tilt again. Disappear? You want us to just vanish? Reeves looked her dead in the eye. If you want to stay alive, yes. For a long moment, the only sound was the wind. Then Cole nodded slowly. We'll do it your way. Reeves turned back toward her SUV, her voice sharp against the rain. Stay off comms. Don't use base channels. And Cole, don't let her out of your sight. I wasn't planning to, he said softly. When Reeves drove away, the night swallowed her headlights. Emily stood there, shivering in the mist, staring out at the dark waves below. She turned to Cole, her voice quiet but firm. So what now? He looked toward the ocean, eyes distant. Now, he said, we find out who started Black Wake. And we end it. The wind howled, carrying the sound of sirens faintly in the distance. The storm had passed over the base, But Emily knew it wasn't over. It was only moving closer toward them. And for the first time since she joined the service, she understood what real duty meant. Not obedience, not orders, but the courage to face the truth, no matter how dangerous it was. In that moment, standing beside the man who had once saluted her at the gate, she realized the salute hadn't been respect for her position. It had been recognition. He had seen something in her long before she saw it in herself. The battle that awaited them wasn't about rank or command. It was about loyalty, justice, and the hidden war that had been waiting beneath the surface all along. And as the first light of dawn crept across the horizon, Emily Carter knew there was no turning back. The horizon bled slowly into shades of gold as dawn rose over the Pacific, but for Emily Carter, it felt like the beginning of another long night. She sat on a rock overlooking the restless ocean, her damp uniform heavy with salt and exhaustion. The events of the last 12 hours played in her mind like broken film reels. The drive, the transfer, the confrontation, Reeves' warning to disappear. The world she thought she knew had shattered, and now she was somewhere between soldier and fugitive. Behind her, Commander Cole was quiet, standing by the vehicle with his arms crossed, scanning the coastline like a man expecting ghosts. He looked older now, the lines around his eyes deeper than before. "We can't stay here," he said finally. His voice was calm but hollow. "Reeves is right. They'll sweep the coast within the hour." Emily turned to him, the wind catching strands of her hair. "Then where do we go?" He hesitated. "There's an old naval relay station up in the hills. Decommissioned years ago. We can use it to track where that data went." She frowned. "You think the signal left the base?" He nodded. Every firewall on Coronado went up the second the transfer hit 100%. "But I know one thing about leaks. Carter, they always leave a fingerprint." She followed him back to the vehicle, the ocean vanishing behind them as they drove inland. The base lights disappeared in the rearview mirror, swallowed by fog. For a long stretch, neither spoke. The hum of the engine and the soft hiss of rain were the only sounds left. When they reached the hills, the road narrowed into a dirt trail. Old fences sagged under decades of rust, and a battered sign read, "Authorized personnel only, facility closed since 2008. Cole parked beside a collapsed guard post and grabbed a flashlight. "This is it," he said. Emily stared at the crumbling structure ahead. "This place doesn't look like it's held power in years." Cole smirked faintly. "That's why no one looks here." They pushed through the heavy doors and stepped inside. The air smelled of dust and iron. Broken monitors lined the walls, their glass faces cracked like old bones. Somewhere deep in the facility, water dripped steadily, echoing through the hollow space. Cole moved straight to an old console and brushed away a layer of grime. "Help me hook this up." Emily found a power junction and flipped the manual breakers one by one. Sparks jumped, the lights flickered weakly, and slowly a few screens came to life. Lines of ancient code blinked across the display. Cole typed fast, hands steady despite the chill in the room. "If the signal was rerouted offshore, we'll see it here. The system might be outdated, but the tracking subroutines still run on the same backbone." Emily watched as maps began to load faint outlines of the West Coast, digital threads glowing like veins. One of them pulsed red, stretching from Coronado's coordinates out into the Pacific. "There," she said, pointing. "That's the transfer route?" Cole zoomed in, his expression tightening. "Not a route, a relay." The signal bounced off an old underwater cable before redirecting to an unregistered satellite. "That kind of reroute isn't random, it's military precision." "Then this wasn't a hacker," she murmured. "No," he said grimly. "It was someone with clearance." He continued typing, isolating the endpoint. The screen flickered once more, then stopped on a name code, Aries Node, Omega Sector. Emily frowned. I've never heard of that. Cole leaned back, rubbing a hand over his face. It's a black site. Not officially listed, but everyone in command whispers about it. A place where data goes to vanish. If that list reached there, we can't retrieve it. But maybe we can expose who sent it. Emily's pulse quickened. How? By finding their access trail. Every transmission leaves one. Even the ghosts forget to cover their footprints completely. As he worked, the low hum of power filled the room. Outside, the rain had stopped, replaced by the slow crawl of daylight through shattered windows. For a moment, it almost felt peaceful. But Emily couldn't shake the gnawing feeling that they weren't alone. "Sir," she said quietly, "you don't think Reeves knew this would happen, do you?" Cole paused for a moment, his fingers hovering over the keys. "Reeves is one of the best strategists I've ever met. But she's also one of the most dangerous. She plays long games. If she's back, then this isn't just cleanup, it's revenge." Revenge for what? For losing half her team because of Black Wake. The words hung heavy between them. Emily felt her stomach knot. "You were part of that, weren't you?" He nodded slowly. "I led the extraction when it went wrong. We thought we'd contained the breach. We were wrong. People died because I trusted the wrong person. Reeves never forgave me for that." Emily looked at him differently, and not as a commander, but as a man carrying a wound that never healed. Before she could speak, a noise broke the silence, a metallic thud from the far corridor. Cole froze. "We're not alone." He reached for his sidearm and motioned for her to stay behind. The footsteps grew clearer, measured, deliberate. Emily's hand tightened around her weapon as she pressed against the cold concrete wall. The sound stopped just outside the room. Then a voice called out, low and calm, "You really shouldn't have come here." Cole stepped into the doorway. "Who are you?" The man who appeared was dressed in a wet tactical jacket, no insignia. His expression was steady, but his eyes carried that familiar, cold authority of command. "Commander Reeves sent me," he said, though his tone betrayed something off. Cole didn't lower his weapon. "Then where's your verification code?" The man smiled slightly. "Reeves doesn't use codes anymore." The words were enough. Cole fired first, the bullet sparking against a metal panel as the stranger dove for cover. Emily dropped to the floor, firing back as the air filled with gunfire. Sparks exploded from shattered monitors, the old lights flickering violently. When the smoke cleared, the man was gone. The far door swung open to the outside. Cole cursed under his breath. He was tracking us. Reeves didn't send him, they did. Emily looked at the half-broken screens, one of which still blinked weakly. A new line of text appeared. "File secured targets marked for termination." Her heart stopped. "Sir, it's us." Cole stared at the screen, his jaw tightening. "They've tagged our bios. Every checkpoint, every satellite, every drone, they'll know where we are." He slammed the keyboard. "We're out of time." They rushed out of the facility, the wind tearing through the trees as they ran for the vehicle. The sky had turned from gold to gray, clouds gathering once more over the Pacific. As they reached the road, Emily turned back one last time, watching the relay station fade into the mist. "Sir, if they've marked us, how do we fight that?" Cole started the engine, eyes fixed ahead. "We don't hide. We turn their weapon against them." He handed her the small drive, the same one that had started it all. "Inside this is the last trace of their signal before the transfer finished. If we can feed it back into their system, it'll expose the real sender. But we'll only get one shot." Emily stared at the drive in her hand, its metal edges glinting faintly. "And if it fails?" And it ends with us. The vehicle roared down the winding road, heading north along the coast. Emily felt the weight of the drive in her pocket, heavier than any weapon she'd ever carried. She thought of the day Cole had saluted her, of the quiet respect that had started this entire journey. Back then, she thought it was a gesture of honor. Now she understood it had been a warning, too. A recognition of the burden that comes with doing what's right when the world around you refuses to. The wind howled through the open road, and for the first time, she didn't feel afraid. Somewhere out there, beyond the ocean and the noise, the truth was waiting to be brought into the light. Cole's voice broke through her thoughts, calm and steady as always. "You ready, Carter?" She nodded. "Yes, sir. And let's finish what they started." The road stretched endlessly ahead, the first rays of dawn cutting through the mist like blades. Somewhere beyond the horizon, the fight for the truth had already begun, and this time, Emily Carter wouldn't be standing guard at the gate. She would be breaking through it.